guys, so today we're going to be talking about how to propagate your succulents by beheading, and I wanted to share this video with you because I got a perfect succulent a few days ago that is actually perfect for beheading and propagating your succulents. So here's I saw this at the nursery and I knew it was perfect. So if you look closely, this is called an echeveria cubic frost. I think it's a cousin to the topsy-turvy. It's nice and purple, and anyways, if you notice, you see how the stem has gotten really long and has even started sprouting out a whole bunch of new babies. And I love that despite the stem getting leggy over time, if you look at it, the top of the rosette is still very compact. So this is a perfect succulent for beheading and propagation. Let me show you how to propagate a succulent by beheading and some results of other succulents that I have done it to before. So all you do, right, is, let me try to get this close to the camera. All you do is leave about 2 inches of stem to plant in ground, okay? And then you use something like this to cut, make sure it's sanitized and clean. And you just cut right there. See how I made that cut? Now what I would do is I'm gonna take off some leaves, just twist it off, because I'm gonna end up planting this stem in the soil. Twist off some leaves again, save these for propagation, never waste leaves. These propagate really well, by the way. And what you wanna do after you cut is you wanna leave the stem to callus off for about a good 3 days before planting it in dry. It's important to plant it in dry, very well draining soil, and she will eventually grow roots in about 3 to 4 weeks and start growing on her own again. And then eventually, over time, she's gonna start popping out. Now, let me explain to you what will happen to the stump after beheading. Also, by the way, guys, this stump right here, you see that open cut? You want to make sure that you let that callus and it does not get wet to prevent rot, okay? So once you cut the top rosette off, what happens to the stem is, you see how it has babies now? This stem is already nice and mature, and it's already popping out some babies. Now what's going to happen to this stem after you behead it is it's actually going to sprout out even more babies all along the leaf node. This method of propagation is my favorite because it's a lot faster than propagating your succulents by leaf, because these babies are getting nutrition from an established root system. A little tip for watering these, because a lot of my viewers have commented, one of my viewers have commented, and some of my group members have commented that when they do a beheading, right, the succulent, the top rosette usually, for the most part survives, right, because you're just planting it as a cutting. They said a lot of times their stem just kind of dries out or rots. So, something about watering these things. When you have a stem like this and you cut the top head off, even if they're still babies or no babies sometimes, you have to remember you can't water it as much as you normally would water, say, a succulent like this, because it doesn't have as much leaves for the water to go to. Therefore, it all goes to the stem and it ends up rotting. Another thing is, if you don't let this fully callus off and it gets wet, some moisture can get in there and actually can cause the stem to rot. So what I always do is I apply cinnamon, and then about after 3 days later, I like to put super glue just to completely seal it off, just in case, you know, in the future it gets rained on or whatever. Nothing is gonna get in there. It doesn't harm the plant at all. Okay, so I want to show you examples now of what happens to a succulent when you behead, right? How do we propagate this way? So this plant right here, this is called an echeveria fleur blanc. She was the mother plant for this cluster of succulents that I have right here. When I beheaded her, a lot of times one of the reasons why I behead is because when there's so many babies on one stem, the mother plant seems to shrink a little bit when planted in pots. If planted in ground, it would just continue to grow and you wouldn't have to behead it at all. But when planted in pots, it seems that, I guess, there's so much competition for nutrition and water in the soil that the mother plant tends to suffer, because one stem and one root system is providing for all these heads of babies. So when I beheaded her, she had already actually had this outer ring of babies right here. They were still about this small, but she already had them. Now, after I beheaded her, she started producing her own root system. She started growing again. And if you can see right there in the middle, that is where I made the cut from her mature stem. After I made that cut, in about 2 months, a month and a half, this stem started popping out a whole new ring of babies around it. Notice how these babies are a lot smaller than these bigger ones. It's because these are older. These were here before I beheaded her. But after I beheaded her, it actually caused the stem to pop out more babies all along those leaf nodes, and, you know, all along the stem all over again. So I actually got double the amount of babies after chopping the mama's head off. Okay, I just want you guys to see the results of what would happen to this in about 2 months. This whole stem right here will probably be covered with babies. I'll try to give you an update on that when the time comes, if I remember. I have another succulent right here. This is called an echeveria runyonii silver onion. This is my cluster of them. I will insert a picture somewhere in the video when its mama plant was still attached. So I have this whole cluster of babies right here. I did the same thing as I did to this mama plant. I chopped off its mom because it seemed to be shrinking when the babies started growing. There was only about half the amount here that were there when I chopped the mother plant off. Now, I've taken a lot of cuttings from this one stem right here, and each stem, every time you take a cut, okay, every time you take a cut, you see how right there I took a cutting from there. Every time you take a cut from each of these stems, it pops out even more babies. You see how many babies there are on that one small thin young stem? So that is the effect of cutting off the main plant. You know, your echeveria will have more babies, and that's how you get big clusters like this. And I love the look of them. I do take cuttings, and, you know, I still plant them individually in pots, or I like to put them in arrangements that I like to gift to friends and family. But that is how you get a whole cluster of babies like this. Beheading the mama plant, the mature plant, so these guys can grow faster, better, and grow even more babies. This just continues popping ever since I cut the mother plant. Okay, now let me show you another, let me demonstrate another beheading. Let's cut, this is called an Echeveria Paraguayans Pinky. See how many I have of her there? I started with one of these. I started with one about the size of this. And over the period of the last 2 years, I have gotten twice the amount of plants that I have in this bowl altogether. This is the original mother plant now. But I have taken a lot of cuttings from this plant, and it just keeps producing each and every time. So let me do another beheading here for you. And that's the reason why she, you know, besides being a very prolific grower, actually, I've taken a lot of stem cuttings and, you know, done the beheadings like this. So it actually causes the plant to produce more babies faster than just waiting for it. So I'm going to cut this one right here because it has gotten pretty big and, you know, kind of long. I don't mind starting it out again. So all you do, I hope you guys can see this. All you do is you look at a healthy long stem. It's nice to do it for the long ones. And then you just kind of remove a leaf or two just so you know exactly where to cut. And I'm going to be cutting right there. And I hope you guys can see that on camera. And then we just make the snip right there, okay? And then to replant this as a cutting, what you want to do is let that end right there callus off for about 3 days before planting in dry. It's important that it's dry, well draining soil to prevent rot. And in about 3 to 4 weeks, this will start sprouting out roots, and you can start watering sparingly. Okay, so there's that. That would be considered the mother plant that we beheaded. And now this stem right here, you're gonna want this cut also callus off for a few days. And make sure that it does not get wet so it doesn't rot. You can behead stems and not leave leaves, and they could still survive and pop, but the chances are not as good as if you leave a few leaves on the stem like this. I still remove some leaves, you know, for propagation, because these guys propagate really well and really quickly. You want to leave a few leaves on the stem because first, I don't know, for some reason in my experience, they just have a better chance of surviving this way. And then also, when I have these leaves on there and there's no babies yet, it lets me know when this specific one right here, it lets me know when it needs water, because, you know, the leaves start to wrinkle and look dehydrated, so I know when to water. Just remember, guys, when you take a head, when you try to propagate by beheading and take cuttings like this, like I said, it's really the most important thing for that stem without the head to survive is to let that callus off and to not get wet. Okay, that's for the best results, because it can rot very easily. I actually have this plant right here in full sun, so I am probably going to take this out and plant it in a different pot so I could put it somewhere where there's cover and it won't get wet. Okay, you know, it doesn't have to be, I want to show you guys that it doesn't have to be a mature stem. A lot of times I behead because I suspect that there might be something wrong with my succulent, but I still don't throw away the stems unless I know they're completely gone and they're not going to do anything for me. This one, you see where I cut, you can see where, focus, okay, you can see where I took the beheading, the cut, okay. Oh no, the baby just fell off. It's okay, it'll grow. Anyways, that is where I took the cutting from. I didn't throw it away. I left the stem planted in its pot, and it didn't dry out on me. And a few months later, look what happened. A bunch, you know, a bunch of new babies sprouted out all along the leaf nodes of the plant. And you know, this is a very small young stem, and it still produced that many babies for me. And there's some that kind of fell off, I guess, because I hit it, but those will figure it out, and they will also root in the soil and grow as normal. Here's another one. It's just my last one to demonstrate. I really want to encourage you guys to propagate by taking cuttings through beheading, because it really is a much faster way of multiplying your succulents. I have beheaded this stem many times, and this is the original mother plant. I only had one, and it was a lot small. She was a lot smaller when I bought her. It was a small cutting, and every time this stem grew, I just kept cutting and cutting. And you know, from doing that, I've already produced about maybe six or seven of them in about a year. 6 or 7 babies, or even more. I don't even remember anymore. But each time I cut, I get about 2 to 3 new babies. See the 2 new ones that just grew, that grew off that stem when I cut the mama plant off. And right there you could kind of see the super glue. I sealed it with super glue to make sure that these cuts don't get any kind of moisture in them, okay? But yeah, it's a really great way of propagating, guys, and I just wanted to demonstrate how to do it, just in case you guys wanted to give it a try. And now I have these beautiful cuttings to work with that will root eventually and start giving me a whole bunch of new babies again, and the cycle just keeps on going. So I hope I was able to help you guys out with this video. I encourage you to propagate your succulents by beheading to multiply your collection, because this is the quickest way that I have found to work. So if you want to have beautiful clusters like my echeveria right here, go ahead and behead those succulents, okay? So I'm gonna end the video here, guys. This is Christine from These Succulent Buddies. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.